I was so desperate to be a boy that I was crying. I wanted to be a cowboy, you know. And I asked my dad, "Can I be a cowboy?" And we had this conversation, and you know, I was like probably around 1972 or something. And he just said, "Oh no, 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 you know, if you can't be a cowboy because you're a woman, you know, you're going to be a woman. You'll be a housewife, and you know, just normal stuff." And I was bawling and crying, and he said, "Oh, look, you know, there's an operation you can get. You can get a sex change, and you can turn into a boy." And I went, "Oh, really? Can I do that now then?" And he said, "Well, you have to wait till you're 16. I went, "All right, okay, that's fine." I stopped crying. He obviously had so much wisdom that he knew that, you know, that this would be okay. And I went through puberty, and, you know, I started just naturally gravitating towards my mum and hanging out and, you know, doing things and going shopping and doing things with my mum. I just really was never, ever, ever close with my mum. And as soon as I got to that age, that was me. You know, I was like quite bonded with my mum. But I think if somebody had said to me at age 10, that would have been me. Yes, give me them. Give me the tablets, you know, give me everything. You know, not understanding that you don't actually change anything fundamentally. I'm Susan, and I was born and raised in Edinburgh. I was more specifically in Leith, very working class, but very, I would say that, you know, not in any way under, what's the word? Not in any way disenfranchised or, you know, there was a sense of abundance in my upbringing, and I had two extremely competent parents. And they taught me, you know, boundaries, discipline, there was routine, there was structure, there was sticking at school and do well for yourself and all that kind of stuff. So I feel that, you know, I've been quite blessed in that respect, and always just, you know, there was a sense of safety in the house, you know. And yeah, I just grew up and stuck in at school and did okay for myself. I mean, the objective reality hasn't really changed for me, to be honest. I'm really quite taking a strong opinion about this for others, you know, for the younger women, for the mums, for the families, for the people that are in employment, especially in some of the public sector spaces where they're literally petrified, you know. Imagine doing your whole day cranked up because you're scared to just, you know, say the wrong word. You know, so, you know, my parents aren't no longer alive, so this doesn't really affect me, but it does really, it kind of, it's an attack on the fundamental, you know, definition of your being, of your existence. You know, it really is bad. And I think it's worth saying that this, you know, this bill in itself, where it's just admin, and it's, you know, it's just to tidy things up a little bit. You know, when we take that in conjunction with this judicial review that's ongoing, and you know, which really is the one that's going to shaft us, you know, that's the one that in conjunction is going to take away any and every possibility of having any single sex space. My understanding, obviously, the GR gender recognition reform will make it much more easy to acquire a gender recognition certificate. So where, you know, just now we have to have a medical diagnosis, live in the acquired gender. We still don't know what that means. We still don't understand what that means and how you can verify it. But you have to do that for 2 years. And I think the people that have done that have done it. They have gone through a really difficult, arduous process. It must have been really difficult for them, you know, nudging and sniggering and, you know, horrible behaviour. And, you know, they've gone through a real rite of passage to acquire that recognition. And they're recognised in the Equalities Act under the protected characteristic of gender reassignment. Moving forward, all you need to do is say, I'm a lady, And 3 months later, you are. You might not act like a lady. You might be a rapist. You might be a paedophile. You might be a murderer or somebody that's tried to murder people. That's not living as a woman in my eyes. But there's nothing that's going to prevent you from having a GRC on your say so if you declare that you feel like a woman and you're living as a woman because you may have changed a few documents like utility bills or something. You must be believed. And many people, after your conviction for some heinous crime, probably during your conversation with your lawyer, you suddenly realize this womanliness inside you and you end up in the women's prison. And that is just absurd. So that, and then the judicial review, because there is equalities, the Equalities Act is reserved to the Westminster government. And that does say that, we can use exemptions. So we can discriminate against someone to enter women's spaces, even if they have a GRC. Now, Nicola Sturgeon and her feminist fingertips, not content with shaking our foundations a little bit, she is determined to make sure that, any man, any person who has a GRC will be treated in law in every single respect exactly as though they are a woman. And, that means and I hate to talk about horrible subjects, and we don't think they're necessarily going to happen. I don't think my house is going to go on fire, but I have household insurance. We do that. That's how we live. We are cautious, but, if a young woman goes to a rape crisis centre, she's not guaranteed that there's not going to be some fetishy man in a dress getting off on her story and her experience. If you need to go and get some kind of intimate exam, whether it's because you've been raped and it's a forensic exam, or whether you're just going in for a procedure to a hospital, you have no idea if and if you might be out cold after an operation, you might not be able to guarantee that that person is an actual female that's looking after you. So these two things in conjunction, on the one hand, they're saying the GRC reform isn't going to change things, but underneath, they're working on that mechanism to make damn sure it does. And I don't understand why, it's a small percentage of the population, and women are more than 50% of the population. And it's not just women, men are in this fight too. They understand men. So yeah, they don't want their daughters and their sisters and their nieces to not have that protection. It's like an inversion. All these kind of satanic, devilly type thing, they all they invert things. They take the 999, which is a very holistic sort of spiritual number. They turn it upside down and it's 666. They take the swastika, which was a Eastern symbol, a very auspicious symbol, and they turn it. If you go to a Buddhist temple, you might think, oh, it's the Nazi symbol, but it's been switched the other direction. You see, the Cass review, the interim Cass review, which was Dr. Hilary Cass, just for the listeners that don't know, was looking into the sort of care that's being provided. I'll put care in quotes, that's being provided for these kind of gender confused, gender questioning kids. And it said that social transition, as it's known, which does seem harmless because all you're doing is maybe cutting your hair or growing your hair long and changing your pronouns and changing some of your kind of dress, your wardrobe, that is not an insignificant intervention. How difficult is it if you when I was at school, it was like, it was like ska versus punk. How difficult is it to once you've been part of a group, it's not that easy. You kind of think, oh, I feel a bit silly now, but I've just got to keep going with this. Or you're going to keep going until you've had your medical, your medical interventions, and then your irreversible surgical. And puberty blockers are not reversible. I was so desperate to be a boy that I was crying. I wanted to be a cowboy, And I asked my dad, "Can I be a cowboy?" And we had this conversation, and I was like probably around 1972 or something, and he just said, "Oh no, 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 if you can't be a cowboy because you're a woman, you're going to be a woman, you'll be a housewife, and just normal stuff." And I was bawling and crying, and he said, "Oh, look, there's an operation you can get. You can get a sex change, and you can turn into a boy." And I went, "Oh, really? Can I do that now then?" And he said, "Well, you have to wait till you're 16. I went, "All right, okay, that's fine." I stopped crying. He obviously had so much wisdom that he knew that, that this would be okay. And I went through puberty, and, I started just naturally gravitating towards my mum and hanging out and, doing things and going shopping and doing things with my mum. I just really was never, ever, ever close with my mum. And as soon as I got to that age, that was me. I was like quite bonded with my mum. But I think if somebody had said to me at age 10, that would have been me. Yes, give me them. Give me the tablets, give me everything. Not understanding that you don't actually change anything fundamentally. I mean, I've heard of Lupron, I've heard of the gonadotropin things. If people are interested in the medical side of this, have you heard of Exelancic? She was Isle of X, ISLE of X, and she works as a medical speech pathologist. So she's got a lot of, medical knowledge, and our brain is the size of a small planet, for looking at these studies and stuff. And, you can find out what effect they have. First of all, you're not fully cooked until you're 25. It results in lower cognitive ability, like academic ability might be impaired a bit. I don't know if, obviously it stops your breast growing and it stops your penis growing if you're male. So, and it's not like you get into a sort of space, a no man's land kind of space, where you can't just stay where you are. You need to go forward. You need to do, like, if you're stuck with, with the attributes, how can I put this? But if you find your growth stunted, your penis isn't, fully formed, what do? You just change your mind, like you have to go on to, in fact, there's statistics on it that a certain percentage of people who take puberty blockers then go on to cross-sex hormone. They call it cross-sex, it's wrong sex hormones, and they are also very damaging. So there's all sorts of things, like I think the male to female end up with bone deterioration, so they end up on these kind of Zimmer frame things. There's cancer risks. There's the other thing that happens to the female to male that you get. It's funny.
Menopause.
Yeah. You do. Well, it's weird because you get bottom growth where your clitoris grows in size, and it's quite a big and fundamental thing, underneath. So when that grows, it's quite painful apparently, and at the same time you get vaginal atrophy. So the wall, the lining, and the muscles around the cervix, they kind of go the opposite way. And I've heard lately that for a lot of female to male, when they orgasm, they experience quite excruciating pain in the moment, and also up to 24 hours afterwards, like sort of extreme cramping. So, and cure for that is to have a hysterectomy. It started off with hardly anybody knowing about it, and then it got to where you're actually surprised if somebody knows nothing about it, you know. But that said, you know, I do chair-based exercises for women that are, you know, some of them are probably pushing 90 and they even know about it. So I was surprised, but they do. So a lot of people do know about it, and I don't understand why there's no democracy anymore. I mean, I think if you write to your MSP, your local MSP, find out who they are. Specifically, I guess, I mean, Labour, you know, they've kind of, if they would, I don't know if they're worth working on, you know, because, you know, I feel that, I mean, I voted for independence, but for people that didn't, or they weren't, you know, hard yeses, Labour could make a comeback. If they got things right, they could make a comeback in Scotland. The votes have been whipped, which means that they you know, if you're in the Labour Party, you're told by the leader, this is how you're going to vote, even though it's not how you actually want to vote. And we know that there are plenty of Labour supporters that do not, or sorry, plenty of Labour MSPs that really aren't too sold on this. And I think we need to work on them. Yeah, we've already got the you know, we've had that set thanks to Ash Reagan. She got married, and I keep forgetting which names which. Ash Reagan, for being a complete heroine, a shero, and resigning. And I don't know if that set the way for the other 7 to vote against. So we've already got that rebellion in the SNP. So I think that seed's been sown, and people, and you know, if the SNP MSPs know that it's okay, you won't combust spontaneously if you go against Frau Übergruppenführer. Get them told, we pay our taxes, we employ them. We employ them to deliver the services that we want that suit our needs. We're not second-class citizens, you know, and we need to remember that. We pay for this, all of it.